Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My sincere apologies for the slight delay in starting the webinar. We had a few network-related issues that prevented us from starting on time. But I think it should be fine now, and we've got the webinar set up. So I hope you have no issues with viewing my shared screen or with hearing my voice. So I hope I'm loud and clear, and I hope that you're able to see my slide deck, which says Manage Engines, Active Directory, and IT Security Webinar Series Part 3. Right. So before we get started, I just want to pause for about 20 to 30 seconds and make sure everything is okay, because we started off with a bit of a difficulty in the session. So I just want to make sure that now everything is okay. And in case you have any difficulties with hearing me, please reach out to us on the live chat and we'll fix the problem immediately. Right. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. And without any further ado, we'll get right to it with the session. Right. So thank you so much for all of you for actually staying back for the last 5 to 10 minutes while we were fixing the issues. I hope that you will forgive us for this unforeseen difficulty that we faced. But I promise you that we won't waste any more time and we will jump into the webinar right away. Right, so this is what we're going to be looking at in today's part 3 of the webinar series. Right, we're going to be looking at log management and security from a holistic point of view. Right, not just looking at Active Directory, but moving beyond to the rest of the devices in our network. Right, so we already spoke about group change auditing and UBA in the first two parts of the series. And today I want to sort of build on those ideas and talk about how log management and SIEM comes into to your network security, right? So we're going to be looking at mitigating external attacks in particular. The first two parts of the series, we focused on internal attacks and how Active Directory, privileged accounts, admin actions, and things like that are important to monitor, right? And now we're going to be looking at the entire network, including Active Directory. Right? So my aim in today's session is to give you a knowledge share on basic reporting and alerting scenarios that you need to watch out for, and then look at how you can implement this using Manage Engine Log 360. Right? So I want to give you a knowledge share that you can take away even if you're not going to use Manage Engine. I'm going to give you 10 use cases. That's right, 10 use cases on reporting and alerting, and show you why you need to track certain kinds of security events in your organization, and show you then how you can do this using Manage Engine Log 360. Right? So let's get started and look at a couple of hard pressing facts. Right? The first is that 68% of breaches took months or longer to discover. Right? 68% of data breaches investigated by Verizon in 2018 took months or longer to discover. What this means is that you have to people are struggling to detect breaches when they happen, right? 2 out of 3 breaches are taking months to discover. So imagine what happens if tomorrow you go into your organization and you find out that someone tells you that a breach happened on your file server 3 months ago, right? So the repercussions can be really, really devastating for an organization when something like this happens. So because of this problem, I'm going to say that real-time alerts can be the difference between a safe network and a breached one. Right? So you want to have real-time alerts so that you don't have to be notified of a breach 2 or 3 months after it happens. Right? So as an attack is happening, as a compromise is happening on one of your servers, you need a real-time alert notification. Right? This is what we call incident detection and response. As something happens, you need a real-time alert to be triggered. Right? So it's not to say that typically breaches get notified by a third party or by a customer, right? And that can become very embarrassing at times. So when a compromise is happening, you need a real-time alert so that you can quickly go and mitigate the attack. That is what we are trying to achieve today. That is what I want to show you over the course of the webinar, helping you get real-time information about what is happening in your network, right? So we're going to be doing this via SIEM, right? We're going to be doing this via a technology that we have all seen for so many years in IT security, but something that is still so relevant in today's IT security landscape. Right? SIEM has been there for 15 or 20 years. I mean, at least 10 years to the best of my knowledge, right? At least for the last 10 years, we've had organizations emphasizing on log management and SIEM. And this is something that is still very important today. And the scope of SIEM has expanded so much, right? So in the first two parts, we discussed about UBA, machine learning, and things like that, right? So all of these aspects have come together to make modern day SIEM solutions, right? And we just got a question on the live chat asking for the video recordings of the first two parts. So just bear with us for another half an hour, and we'll be sharing you the links of the previous two parts as well, right? So you don't have to miss out on, in case you were not able to make it last week, we've got those recordings on YouTube, and I will be sharing you the link at the end of today's presentation, right? So just coming back to SIEM, right? So we've got a situation here where we need real-time alerts, for which we are going to turn to one of the age-old technologies in IT security and look at how we can implement SIEM effectively to report and alert on events that matter, right? So we know, I'm not going to waste time talking about theory, because we all know what a SIEM solution is, right? It's about getting logs from your different sources, running audit reports so that you know exactly what's happening, and receiving alerts for potential indicators of compromise, right? So this is the process, right? Just a quick refresher for those of you who might have missed out or are new to what SIEM is all about. This is what it entails, right? You basically define an audit policy on your different systems, and these systems could be what you see on the screen, right? These are typical log sources. You've got workstations, servers, domain controllers, your Active Directory, that is, your network devices, your firewalls, routers, switches, your IDS, IPS systems. You've got threat solutions, endpoint solutions, vulnerability scanners, your critical applications like your SQL, your web servers, and your public cloud applications, right? Like your Azure, AWS, and things like that. So all of these things are there in most of our networks. And we need to bring in logs from all of these systems by first defining an audit policy and then collecting the logs into a central location. Right? You go and define an audit policy on your Windows server, on your Linux machines, on your databases, web servers. You define all of these things, and then you bring in all of these logs into a central location, which is what your SIEM solution is. Right? Your SIEM solution is then going to correlate events, make sense of data, and do all of this automatically. Right? So as an administrator, you don't have to worry about parsing millions of logs. Right? Your SIEM solution is going to have the intelligence to make sense of these logs and throw up alerts to you in real time. Right? So this is going to help you respond to attacks quickly. Now that is one side to SIEM. The other side to SIEM is to do with compliance, right? You're collecting the logs, and then you can run reports that you can show to your auditors for meeting compliance regulations, right? And then once you have archived this data, in case worst case scenario you have missed a breach and you come to know of it 2 months later, you still have the archived events that you can search through to find out exactly what happened, right? That's what we call the forensic investigation, right? So I'm not going to spend more time giving you theoretical knowledge, because all of you are bigger experts than myself when it comes to log management and SIEM. But what I want to do today is give you use cases, right? Show you exactly what you need to do and exactly what events you need to watch out for, right? So we said that we first want to list the events that we need to audit. So you want to analyze your IT security and compliance objectives and define the audit policies on all your systems. Make sure that you're configuring logging only for the events of concern, because you don't want too many logs into your SIEM solution, right? Which results in a lot of false positives. As simple as that. Bring in the logs to your SIEM solution, and then I want you to do two things. One is to schedule reports on a daily basis so that you get data sent to you in PDFs on all the important things that have happened in the last 24 hours. And I want you to set up real-time alert notifications to detect indicators of compromise. And that's what I'm going to show you over the next 20 minutes. I'm going to show you actual cases and actual scenarios where you have to watch out for these things in your network, right? So when these things happen, when you have logons, when you have certain other things which we're going to look into, I want to give you examples of what are the different things that you need to watch out for, right? And I'm going to at the end show you how you can configure reporting and alerting using Manage Engine Log 360, which is our comprehensive SIEM solution, which integrates Event Log Analyzer and AD Audit Plus, right? We already touched upon AD Audit Plus in the first two parts of the webinar series. And in today's part, I'm going to focus mainly on Event Log Analyzer, right? I am going to touch upon certain aspects of AD Audit Plus, but my main focus is on Event Log Analyzer, right? Because AD Audit Plus is what we do with AD Audit Plus is we mitigate internal attacks, right? We want to keep insider threats under check. And with Event Log Analyzer, we want to mitigate external attacks. So my main focus is going to be on the external attacks, but I'm also going to touch upon some crucial aspects of internal attacks, because sometimes both are sort of interrelated, right? Now, coming to the actual crux of the webinar, here I'm going to give you 10 examples of events that you need to track, right? So if you're not doing this already, make sure that you go and implement auditing for all of these events, right? Event number one, and this is very, very important for a lot of compliance regulations, right? I want you to report events based on their severities, right? So as you know, logs have severity levels, different severity levels like warning, information, debug, and things like that. What I want you to do is make sure that your SIEM solution is categorizing all of these events based on their criticality, so that you can quickly go and view how many warning events, how many information events, how many critical events, how many failure events, how many success events in one click, right? I want you to make it that simple. And in fact, I'm going to use this opportunity to jump into Event Log Analyzer to show you where you can find these reports and get this data, right? So just go to www.eventloganalyzer.com. We've got an online demo setup running for you. It is only a limited, functionality online because we can't simulate the entire solution on the web. But what this demo does for you is it helps you get a look and feel of the product, right? So if you've not downloaded the product, I encourage you to go to the website and you can do this along with me, right? Just go to eventloganalyzer.com, click on demos, right? So here you actually have an option to schedule a personalized demo with our consultants and partners, or you can just use the online demo setup that we have. If you scroll down, and you can just click on demo.eventloganalyzer.com. And here we have a semi-functional online setup running on the cloud, right? So just log in and you'll be able to access the product, right? You'll be able to, you can't obviously configure your firewalls with the online setup because that would really be insecure. But what you can do is you can see some of the data that we've populated and some of the reports and alerts that we have set up so that you can actually get a look and feel of the product without too much effort, right? So if you go to the reports tab here, you will actually see that we have a whole bunch of pre-built reports, right? A lot of pre-built reports. You can see different devices, Cisco, SonicWall, Fortinet, Juniper, Sophos. For all of these vendors, we give pre-built reports, which means you don't have to define any reporting criteria. All of the reports get automatically generated, right? So just let me come back to show you some reports that we have for the Windows environment. And this is what I was talking about. Severity levels, right? Success events, information events, failure events, all of these things. You get this in a neat summary or chart form, right? You can see that all this data is presented to you out of the box. And we talked about criticality of events, right? So you can actually track events or different events based on their criticality, based on, say, the remote device, based on the event itself. You can have a look at the overviews, the trends, right? All of these things matter because, for example, if you just look at this report, you can see that there's some kind of anomaly, right? If we have not too many critical events being triggered and suddenly a huge number of critical events, right? So these kinds of reports actually give you insights into what is going on in your network, right? It gives you a summary and it helps you investigate, right? So this is a very good best practice, which is to actually look at important events based on their criticalities and severities, so that you have at first glance, in just a matter of a few clicks, you will get an idea of what's happening in your network, right? I'm just jumping back to the presentation now. Reports based on severity. Now, the next thing is what I want you to track is modifications made to confidential data, right? You all have files and folders, you all have databases, and all of these things require you to ensure that the integrity of data is maintained, right? A lot of compliance regulations, a lot of your own internal IT security policies will expect you to maintain the confidentiality and the integrity of sensitive data, right? So I want you to track the accesses and modifications made to your confidential data, right? Both stored on your files and folders and that is stored on your databases, right? So this involves you knowing the 4 vital W's: the who, the when, the which, and the what, right? Who accessed a particular piece of data? When was the data access done? Which data object was accessed? And what the changed value is, right? In case if someone makes a change, what is the changed value compared with the existing value, right? So this is very important. You need to know. So for example, if you have sensitive data, if you're storing, say, passport numbers of employees, if someone goes and changes something, you need to know that, right? You need to know what the before and the after. So this is very important. And I have a screenshot. We touched upon this a little bit in the first 2 parts of the series, but this is a screenshot from AD Audit Plus, which gives administrators an immediate idea of all the file and folder activities in their file server, right? You can see different things: files created, modified, deleted, moved, even things like copy pasted, renames, only read accesses, SACL changes, failed attempts. All of these things are very important. You need reports of all of these things for your file servers, right? So if you're not doing this already, and not just your file servers, but any other systems that store data, you might have NetApp, you might have a SQL database, Oracle database, whatever be it, right? You need to make sure that you are tracking the file and folder, or rather the data changes in your organization, right? The accesses and modifications, right? Number 3 is system events, right? I want you to track all the server shutdowns, installations of services and software on your servers, because these events don't normally happen, right? How many of you go and install a new service and run it on your Windows servers on a daily basis, right? We don't do this, right? Our servers, we generally don't keep doing things like installations and installations of new softwares and services, right? We don't do this. So when those things happen, it's a potential indicator of compromise. And again, with the shutdowns, we're not going to be shutting down our critical servers frequently, right? So what this means is that when something like this happens, it's an indicator of a potential compromise, right? If someone unexpectedly you realize your Windows server has been shut down, or you realize that someone has started a new service and is running it on your Windows server, right? So this is why system events become very important. You have to make sure that you're tracking all of the system events on your servers, right? Because this is crucial to ensure that everything is up and running the way it should be. Now, I have one more pro tip here, which is that you can streamline the incident response by integrating your SIEM solution with a ticketing tool, right? You can actually, when you get an alert for, say, a Windows server being shut down, you can make sure that your SIEM solution is integrated with your help desk tool so that a ticket gets raised to the designated administrator for the alert, right? So you might be using, say, Manage Engine Service Desk Plus, right? In which case you can integrate Event Log Analyzer with Service Desk Plus so that when you get an alert for, say, the installation of a new service on your Windows server, you can get that alert automatically assigned as a ticket to the designated administrator, right? So you might have a Windows admin who's in charge of this. So they can get the ticket in real time as the alert gets triggered, right? So it ensures that your process of resolution is very streamlined and accountable, right? So this is, make sure you're tracking system events and going one step further to integrate your SIEM solution with your ticketing software. Right, then login activity. Obviously something that you want to track, right? Because this is something that any attack will inevitably have some logon event in some part of its kill chain, right? And you need to go beyond your Active Directory logons, right? You might have other machines, you might have databases, you might have other Unix-based servers, you may have public cloud platforms, right? You need to track logins for Office 365, for Azure, for your databases, for even your network devices, right? So logins in general is something that you need to track because inevitably there is going to be a login event in an attack. So you need to check for suspicious logins, right? For what if an account gets locked out? What if a database administrator account is locked out, right? So that's a compromise, a potential compromise right there. So I want you to look specifically for repeated fail logons because that could indicate a brute force attack. And I also want you to look out for account lockouts, right? Because this again is something that is a potential indicator of compromise, right? So make sure you're on top of your login activity. This is very important for compliance because a lot of regulations expect you to maintain the audit trail of who is logging on to which systems, right? Who's logging on to your servers, your databases, your cloud applications. All of these things you need to track, right? Because that's the only way you can detect unauthorized logins, right? What if someone made an unauthorized logon as an administrator, using an administrator account to your database, right? So you need to track all of these things. So this brings me to administrator actions. Now, admins are obviously the most powerful entities in any network, right? This is, in fact, most attackers try to compromise the administrator account, right? Because if, for example, an attacker gets hold of one of your end user's credentials, the damage that they can do is only limited to that end user, right? They can probably steal data from their system and the systems that they have access to. But what would happen if an attacker compromised your administrator account, right? What if they got hold of your privileged account credentials, right? They suddenly have access to everything. They can just go to Active Directory, right click on a GPO and click delete, right? So this is a huge problem. So protecting your administrator accounts becomes #1 priority. And for this, you need to track the actions that administrators are doing, right? What if one of your administrators becomes rogue and starts to do malicious actions in your network? Or what if someone got hold of your administrator credentials and started doing unusual things, right? So for example, if someone compromised your administrator account and you suddenly notice that an admin account is copying data from your file server, you should immediately understand that that is a compromise and go and stop it, right? One further thing that you can do is create honeypots, right? We know that attackers are going to target administrator accounts, and we know that attackers are going to look to compromise your administrator account. So what I encourage you to do is rename the built-in administrator account, right? Rename the built-in administrator account to anything that you like, maybe James Bond, and then create a regular account and rename that as administrator, right? So now suddenly, if someone in your organization is trying to act smart and is trying to look at the administrator account, you know that someone is trying to do a compromise, right? It's more like a bait. The dummy administrator account anyway doesn't have accesses and doesn't have any privileges. So even if someone compromises it, it doesn't matter. So what you can do is create this dummy honeypot administrator account, enable logon activity auditing for it, and then check if someone is trying to access that, right? So that is a pro tip for boosting your admin account security. Rename the administrator account so that it's protected. Create a dummy administrator account, which is called the honeypot, and then track the activities for that account, right? If someone is trying to access it, immediately you know that there is a potential compromise. And the best part is, even if they do succeed, you will be able to catch them and no damage would have been done because the honeypot account doesn't have accesses, right? So administrator actions, very important to track. Know exactly what changes your administrators are doing, what data they're accessing, what they are modifying. You need to maintain this audit trail. And this is very important for different regulations like ISO, PCI DSS, right? You need to maintain the audit trail of privileged user activities, right? Talking about changes, I want to talk about Active Directory changes again because this is so important, right? And we spoke about this in the previous two sessions in great detail, right? Mark gave you some great insights on how AD Audit Plus can actually help you stay on top of your Active Directory changes, right? But I wanted to touch upon this even from a SIEM point of view because your Active Directory at the end of the day can be misused to carry out attacks, right? So for example, if a regular end user gets added to your enterprise admin group, right? You have a violation right there. So you need to make sure that you're tracking changes to users, groups, computers, OUs, GPOs, right? All of these things you must track in real time, right? I just wanted to touch upon this one more time just to reiterate what Mark had spoken about in great detail in the first two parts. Right? Make sure you're tracking Active Directory changes. Your Windows security log is your biggest asset while investigating security incidents. Right? Network configuration changes. The same idea of Active Directory is extended to the other parts of your network as well. Right? You've got your network devices, your firewalls, routers, switches, your IDS, IPS systems. Now, what if someone goes and makes a change to the configurations of those systems, right? Just like someone making a change to your group management settings in Active Directory can result in a violation. In the same way, a change made to say a firewall policy or a router configuration can expose your network, right? What if someone goes and changes a firewall policy to allow access to a particular blacklisted IP address, right? That's a problem. Right? Because firewall policies are very explicit. What if the firewall policy is modified to give access to someone who's not supposed to have access, right? So you need to track what are the firewall rules being added, being deleted, being modified. All of these things must be audited to make sure that you can detect potential misuses, right? Because these kind of changes, just like Active Directory changes, network device and configuration changes can result in security loopholes, right? You might not realize it, and then if you've missed a particular firewall policy change or a network configuration change, you are potentially jeopardizing the security of your network, right? And it can be very hard to track this. So make sure that you're getting reports on all the network configuration changes and you're getting alerts for important modifications made to your firewall policies. Right. Then this brings me to web servers, right? Because web servers, as you know, are front-end facing, right? Your web applications are customer-facing applications, which means that ports are open and customers are expected to come and access those applications, right? So because they are facing the public in the internet, it becomes a very easy target point for attackers, right? Because it's out there in the open, it's on the internet. So it becomes easier for attackers to target web servers as the starting point in their attack, right? If they're able to breach your web server, they might get access to some crucial data and things like that. So web servers are often an entry point for attackers, which means that you have to make sure that you are closely monitoring your web server activity, right? So this means this could include who's visiting your site, what IP addresses, who are the users accessing your site, what are the files that are being uploaded or downloaded, what are the requests coming to your web server, are any of those URLs malicious, right? And then errors, what are the errors being triggered on your web server? Because if you have, for example, a huge spike of a particular type of HTTP status codes, that itself is a potential indicator of compromise, right? You know, if you're suddenly getting several errors being thrown up on your web server, you know that something is suspicious, right? So the next thing you also can track on your web servers are known attack patterns, right? You have some known attack patterns such as SQL injection and cross-site scripting. So these are things that anyone can track if they know that this is the pattern, right? SQL injection has a particular kind of query that gets executed. Cross-site scripting again has a particular kind of pattern. So make sure you've enabled your SIEM solution to track these known patterns of attacks, because that itself eliminates a lot of potential compromises, right? Just those few known attacks, if you're able to detect and mitigate, that in itself is going to help you go a long way in mitigating a lot of different attacks, right? I just got SQL injection and cross-site scripting to my mind when I made this presentation. So I mentioned these two, but there are actually a lot of other kinds of attacks on your web servers that you can actually track and eliminate using a SIEM solution. Right. Number 9 is firewall accepted and denied connections. Right. So this is very important because you need to know what are the IP addresses flowing in and out of your network. Right. You need to know which are the connections that your firewall is allowing and which are the connections that it is denying. Right. Because at a given point, you need to know if the traffic in your network is malicious or not. Right. You need to know at a given point whether the traffic in your network is from trusted sources or whether it is from or whether it has any blacklisted interactions or malicious interactions going on, right? You can also go one step further and integrate your SIEM solution with threat feeds, which can actually map the firewall traffic and to the threat databases to check if all the traffic in your network is legit, right? So if you know that a particular IP address is malicious or a particular domain or callback server is malicious, your SIEM solution can correlate the data that it has seen from your firewall logs with the threat database and give you alerts for malicious activities, right? So it's very important to know at a given point what traffic is flowing through your network, right? What traffic is coming to your firewall? What are the IP addresses that are being blocked? If you find that a particular IP address is repeatedly trying to access something and keeps getting blocked by a firewall, you know that there is a potential suspicious activity right there, and you can go take steps to permanently block that IP address, right? So this is very important, that the idea of knowing what traffic is there in your network, what is it based on the source, the destination, and the protocol, right? Like your SSH traffic and things like that, which at a given point will tell you if your network is secure. Right? If you know that all the traffic in your network is trusted and legitimate, then you know that you're safe at that point in time. right? And in case something goes wrong, your traffic data is very important for conducting forensic investigations, right? I don't just mean for things like your denial of service attacks, but also for potential data breaches. You can actually track the entire pattern of the attack and go to the firewall level and see when the IP address gained access to your network, what are the things that it then did, and all of the other forensic things, right? But the first step will always be checking when did that IP address enter your network, right? Why did your firewall or IDS IPS systems not flag it, right? So that's very important when it comes to forensics. And my last event that I want you to track are user behavior anomalies, right? Again, we touched upon this in detail in part 2 of the webinar series, but I wanted to stress upon this again because this is something that you need today in IT security, right? You need to go beyond basic alerting rules and basic reporting rules and leverage techniques such as machine learning to actually know what is happening in your network, right? You need to, if you want to unearth anomalies and threats at an early stage, you need to look beyond the traditional rule-based alerting criteria, right? You need some kind of extra intelligence in the form of machine learning that can tell you that, hey, this user is doing something that he normally doesn't do, right? So this, I don't want to dive into user behaviors again because we spent an entire session talking about it, but I wanted to stress upon the importance of having these technologies such as machine learning in your SIEM solution, right? You don't want your SIEM solution to just be basic alerting based on rules, right? You want your SIEM solution to have these new technologies such as machine learning to really be able to discover threats that you wouldn't have been able to otherwise. Right. Just coming back to Log 360, right? We've seen 10 categories of events that we need to track, right? We have seen 10 actual use cases that you can go ahead and implement in your organization if you're not already doing, right? And a good way to do it if you don't have a SIEM solution is to evaluate Log 360, right? Because Log 360, like I said, has two main components. One being Event Log Analyzer, which can track all your external attacks, and the other being AD Audit Plus, which dives into Active Directory to help you mitigate internal threats, right? And what Log 360 does is it gives you pre-built reports, right? In addition to being easy to deploy and easy to manage, it gives you over 1,000 pre-built reports, such as the ones that we saw at the start of the webinar, right? I showed you some of the reports, the Windows reports based on severities, criticalities, the huge out-of-the-box range of devices for which we give out-of-the-box support, right? Right from, even if you go to network devices, you've got Cisco, Huawei, Fortinet, Juniper, Barracuda, all of these vendors we support. Right, so that's the biggest strength of Log 360, right? If you have a particular platform that you're looking to audit, the chances are that we are already giving pre-built auditing support for that platform, right? So what Log 360 can help you do from a SIEM context is it can help you schedule reports to periodically review security events, such as the ones I showed you the reporting section, and maybe I'll just jump into it again in a minute. And the other thing that it can do is it can give you alerts, right? So I'm just going to jump into the product to actually show you how I can configure some of these alerts, right? Reports is something that we already touched upon, and you can just jump to the reports tab and look at the whole bunch of devices for which we give reports for, and you can scroll and figure out by yourself what are the platforms you want to audit, and you'll be happy to know that we will support that platform out of the box, right? So I encourage you to go to the reporting section and really look at all the different servers like IBM AS400, your Cisco infrastructure. All of these things are supported by Event Log Analyzer, right? So I'm not going to show you all the 1,000 reports, obviously, but I want you to go into the reports tab and look at the different insights that you can get, right, for your security operations. So I'm just going to show you one final thing for today's webinar, which is on how to set up an alert profile, right? So you can actually go to the alerts tab and click on add alert profile. And here what you can do is you can actually choose the devices that you want to receive alerts for, right? So for example, if you're looking at a bunch of Windows servers, which the product has discovered, you can add these devices for monitoring and then choose the alert that you want, right? So when you do that, you actually get a whole bunch of pre-built alerting scenarios, right? You get over 1,000 pre-built alerts with the product. So you can choose what are the alerts that you want. So for example, you can see here a whole bunch of things. You've got AD backup errors, applications hanging, access is denied, whole bunch of things, DOS attacks, blue screen error of deaths, whole bunch of different events. And you can choose the event that you want an alert for and add it as an alert profile. Right? So for example, if you look at, we've added a few Windows servers here. So if you look at Windows shutdown, you can see that the criteria for the alert gets automatically populated. And all you need to do is then choose the mode of notification, whether you want an email or an SMS, or whether you want to run a program when the alert gets triggered. And that's it. You've set up the alert profile. It's that simple, right? You just have to choose the devices for which you want the alert for, choose the alerting criteria, which is just a matter of a few mouse clicks, and you click on save alert profile after choosing the mode of notification, and you're good to go, right? Anytime this happens on those selected servers, you will get a real-time notification, right? I don't have time, unfortunately, to dive deep and show you multiple alert configurations, but I wanted to give you an idea of how Log360 can help you report and alert on crucial security events, right? The whole point of this webinar was to give you a knowledge share on what are the things that you need to look out for. And I just wanted to touch upon and show you that you can do all of these things using Manage Engine Log360, right? So this brings me to the end of today's webinar. I want to just let you know that we have part 4 happening tomorrow at the same time, right? So be sure you join in for part 4 to ensure that you don't miss out on another crucial aspect of SIEM, which is attack mitigation. Right? Today we saw the basic aspects of reporting and alerting, but in part 4 we're going to dive deep into event correlation, threat intelligence, and exactly how you can use a SIEM solution to detect and respond to security incidents. It will also touch upon the latest trends in SIEM, right, to give you a holistic view of what you need to look out for when you evaluate a SIEM solution. Right, so don't miss out on part 4. Make sure you join us tomorrow at the same time as today to learn how a SIEM solution's correlation and threat intelligence features can help you mitigate advanced cyber attacks. Right. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today. My sincere apologies for the slight delay in the start. Right, it was an unforeseen error, network issue that we faced that resulted in a 5-minute delay. Right, so my sincere apologies, and thank you so much for staying back and not leaving when the small delay happened. Thank you so much for sticking around for the entire session. We've had a lot of questions on the live chat that we've been answering in near real time, right? And in case your questions haven't yet been answered, just put up with us for another 2 minutes and we'll ensure that they're answered on the live chat, right? So if you have any questions, we are available for another 10 minutes so you can ask them on the live chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us. I've just been told that we will be sending you the video recordings of the webinars within a day. So just stay tuned for that as well. We're just uploading it on YouTube and we'll be sharing you the links. So just put up with us for another 1 day and we'll send you the video recordings of the entire webinar series, right? So thank you so much for joining us and I hope you have a great day ahead.